everyone talking about fragrances that smell like almond cookies and mainly focusing on ones that are not gourmand. There are a few that snuck in here that are a bit gourmandy, but for the most part, these are not ones that were intentionally gourmand, and I just, at least personally, get some almond cookie vibes out of them. So, jumping in the list, these are in no particular order, not from best to worst, not from, anything else like most almondy to least or anything, but let's just dive in. One, Mandorlo de Sicilia by Acqua di Parma. This has notes of green almond, star anise, orange, bergamot, white peach, ylang, jasmine, bourbon vanilla, tolu balsam, white musk, and cedar. And this is really different from most of the other ones in the Blue Mediterraneo series from Acqua di Parma. Everyone's probably familiar with those bottles. Most of those are really fresh and clean and maybe like sweet fresh even. This one is soft, powdery, creamy, spiced almond cookie type of scent to me. I think it's really underrated. It doesn't have bad reviews, but I never see people talking about it compared to the most of the other items in that range. I'm not a fan of star anise because it's a little bit too licoricey for me, but it's done really nice here, not overpowering and just really pleasant and welcoming, but not in a cloying gourmandy way like you might think. Next up, we've got Tonka Imperiale by Guerlain. I'm sure that will be a theme with some of these. Tonka definitely can go in an almond direction, specifically like that kind of sweet almond cookie. So this one almost starts out smelling like a fancy bakery marzipan almond cookie with sort of like little Play-Doh style Tonka coming into the mix. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just that sort of edge of the Tonka. And as it progresses, a darker edge kind of billows in with a refined tobacco. It's not the most unique, as there's a lot of kind of almondy Tonka scents out there with that scent profile, but it's luxurious, high quality, and a really well blended take on it. Very unisex. Next, we've got Comandante by Xerjoff. This has fruity notes, floral notes, tobacco, honey, vanilla, cedar, leather, patchouli, spicy notes, and labdanum. So as you can see, I try to choose ones that really have a lot of different kind of notes, but somehow all have this almond cookie thing in there. So the opening of this one reminds me a lot of Polo Supreme Leather, for those who have tried that. Creamy, soft, enveloping, sweet leather. The honey here is really well blended. It does not feel overly syrupy the way it sometimes does. The notes just looked a little random before I tried it, but it feels surprisingly cohesive. It's like sweet, woodsy, spicy, leathery, and even fresh, and they all kind of, those accords come together seamlessly. To me, it smells like eating almond cookies in a brand new sports car driving past an orchard. And I think it's cool that it managed to make kind of all of those things come together, which you'd never normally think about. One of my favorite Xerjoffs. It's not necessarily the most unique smelling Xerjoff, for example, but I think it's really mass appealing in a good way. It's not challenging, but it still has that niche quality, and it's still fairly unique overall. Next up, Tom Ford for Men Extreme. This has notes of truffle, patchouli, fig, cedar, and lemon, and I would never think looking at that like, oh yeah, that's going to smell like an almond cookie, but here we are. It smells really classy, much more mass appeal than the typical Tom Ford fragrance. Tom Ford fragrances always smell high quality, but to me at least, they don't always smell like something that other people who aren't into fragrance are going to like. Obviously, I'm not talking about the more popular ones, but just overall, having tried so many of them, a lot of them are a little more on the challenging side. But this one smells like a tobacco-y almond cookie in a really good way. And it's really smooth, rich, warm, and not overly stuffy either. And I like it a lot better than the regular Tom Ford for Men version personally. But yeah, that's more of the like masculine, refined, tobacco-y version of almond cookie. Next, this might be one of the most gourmandy ones on the list, but not, again, in that kind of like purposeful sugar and spice type of way, Bath and Body Works style or whatever. BDK Velvet Tonka. This has almond, orange blossom, tobacco, rose oil, tonka bean, bourbon, vanilla, amberwood, and amyris. Very much almond cookie. It smells like walking into like a delicious fancy bakery, and if you're going to compare it to like Gourmands, it's much more on the elegant and classy side. It's not overly synthetic or sugary or overly youthful, though it's not dated or overly mature either. It kind of reminds me of that Mercedes-Benz Club Black type of vibe where it's almost like a smoky vanilla. And although rose is listed as a note, to me it's well blended enough that I don't really pick up any rose, and that's fine with me because I'm not a big fan of rose. I saw some other people for the reviews of that saying it smells like marzipan almond cookies with a touch of Play-Doh. I can see that, but to me not in a bad way. But maybe I'm just getting some major nostalgia from being a kid or something. But yeah, that one's definitely more on the side of if you're truly looking for a gourmand but not gourmand type of almond cookie scent that you can kind of like, oh, this is sweet and this is luxurious, rich in a sweet way, but that doesn't go so far that it's like synthetic sweet. Next, apologies for butchering the pronunciation in advance, Feve Delicieuse by Dior. This has lavender, mint, bergamot, cherry, freesia, jasmine, tonka bean, Madagascar vanilla, caramel, dark chocolate, benzoin, leather, sandalwood, coconut, and cedar. So this is a nice, more mature take on a vanilla-y almond, and it doesn't go, of course, into the cheap generic sugar territory like a lot of vanilla heavy fragrances do. Honestly, even a lot of the niche or more high-end ones. This has like a warm almond cookie vibe to it, really well blended rich mix of accords, and the cherry and tonka combination is unique and interesting. It gives it kind of this mysterious edge that keeps me coming back, wanting to smell it again. It's not something that's like my all-time favorite vanilla, but it's very intriguing, a nice more luxurious take on vanilla, and of course has that almond cookie-ish side to it. Next up, another vanilla-dominated one, Sublime Vanille by Creed. This has bourbon vanilla, vanilla orchid, tonka bean, lemon, bergamot, and musk. And to me, this is a much better use of bourbon vanilla than most other fragrances I've tried with that note. The kind of boozy edge just helps make it creamier and gives it more depth, but it doesn't add that kind of sourness that a lot of boozy notes do. It's really rich, but powdery vanilla, especially with the tonka bean. And it's very much almost has this almond cookie type of edge. The vanilla here also reminds me a little bit of the smoky vanilla Mercedes-Benz Club Black, but a little bit less cloying. This is really refined, yet like strong and addictive. And it's easy to find decent vanilla fragrances out there, so I wouldn't recommend going and shelling out for this, but if you like the idea of a more like powdery, creamy almond cookie vibe of the vanilla, this might be a good one to try. Next up, we've got one of the most affordable ones on the list, and this is a masculine one, Azzaro the Most Wanted, although I wouldn't consider it super masculine, but it's marketed to men. This has cardamom, toffee, and amberwood, really creamy blend of those three, and if you like the idea of a combination of those, great option. This is like a warm almond cookie dunked in a cup of tea in a good way. It's definitely pretty gourmandy, but it's not like it was marketed as a gourmand. If you don't like the idea of a sweet and creamy sort of desserty vibe, I would not try that one. But if you do and are looking for a more affordable option, that's a good one. Next up, Lost Cherry by Tom Ford. I'm sure everyone's at least heard of this. It has sour cherry, bitter almond liquor, more sour cherry, plum, Turkish rose, jasmine sambac, tonka bean, vanilla, Peru balsam, cinnamon, benzoin, sandalwood, cedar, cloves, vetiver, and patchouli. So this, to me, opens like a Shirley Temple, like the drink, with extra grenadine and a warm almond cookie on the side. So it's a really nice combination of all of those kind of vibes where you're getting like the fun Shirley Temple sort of, cherry fruit vibe, and then that's amped up a little bit, makes it more syrupy, but the warm almond cookie kind of adds a little bit of class as well. One's definitely more on the pricey side, but if you're willing to spend and you like the idea of cherry, really like syrupy in a luxurious way, almond cookie type of vibes, check it out. And last on this list is Oceanic Amber by Korres. This has amber, cedar, mint, apple, cardamom, and black pepper. And this is one of the smoothest ambers I have ever smelled, and it, in a very like almond cookie type of way, obviously, if it's on this list. It's not the typical kind of overpowering, cloying amber, especially one that you'd expect to get if you see amber in the title. That sounds like it would have a lot. But here, it's like a really nice change of pace where it's just warm, fresh, woodsy, and spicy, but none of those go too far. Just like such smooth almond cookie vibes, but never gourmandy or anything. It's certainly not intended to be that way. That's what I get out of it, and I think it's done in a really smooth, nice way. So if you've tried any of these, or if you have other ones that you think fit this category, let me know. I will put links in the description where you can try a sample of any of these.